What's good, folks? Family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth to another episode of Disguised Coverage, the only podcast in existence that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin and is, of course, presented by the best pizza in Buffalo, New York, and that is One Pie Pizza. You can find the online menu in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app and or platform you're using to listen to this show on. I am your host, Anthony. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro, 2_ANT. In tonight's episode of Disguised Coverage, we are going to dive into the schematics. That's right. It's the schematics and structural components of Bills versus Jags leading into week 5 as the two clash in London. Way in the back end of the episode, we're going to dive into some stock up and stock down coming out of the week 4 victory against the Miami Dolphins for the Buffalo Bills. We're going to take a peek at some game tape for some structural pieces for the Bills, some individual player evaluation for the Bills, a lot of fun stuff, a couple sad pieces or, stock down pieces to go through, but a lot of positivity coming out of that victory against the Miami Dolphins. But again, that'll be on the back end of this episode. Leading in the forefront of this episode, we'll be diving into the X's and O's, structural components, schematic pieces of the Buffalo Bills versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. And to do that, I'm bringing back somebody who I had on the show last week who absolutely crushed it as we broke down the schematics of Bills versus Dolphins. And I think I should have done my due diligence and gone back and looked at it, but I'm pretty confident this is the first ever repeat guess in a back-to-back setting, which I think it's a pretty tremendous thing. So without further ado, from SB Nation, Mr. JP Acosta, you joined me last week. You crushed it. We vibe on Twitter. I DM'd you about this week. You're joining me again. You know ball. You're fantastic. And the Jags are near and dear to your heart. So I thought this was just an absolute perfect time to invite you back. Thank you for taking the time to join me and welcome again.
No problem. Thanks for having me on again. This feels like a perfect collision course. We had to have this conversation again, especially about the Jaguars, a team that is correct, that is near and dear to my heart, a team that I've loved since the moment I started watching football. It was passed down to me from my dad, and now I kind of carry it on. So I'm excited.
That's awesome. It's funny. Well, I always there's two things I always remember about the Jags, and they're both playoff related. Like, obviously the Bills breaking the drought and then losing to the Blake Bortles Jags. But the big one that sticks with me, and I always forget the year. I remember just being a little kid. I think it was like 96, 97. Like the Bills lose to the Natron Means Jags in Buffalo. And it was still when it was towards the tail end of the Bills, 90s, strong teams. And I remember going grocery shopping with my dad the morning of. And it was just a very light, carefree attitude in Buffalo. Everybody was like, the Jags are this new team. We're still the Bills. Everything's fine. And then I just remember what seemed like a 500-pound running back with this all-black visor and the black elbow pads and black gloves just running through the Bills. And I just remember being so shocked as a little kid. I was just I've never even really heard of this team. And they beat the Bills. Everything I knew was the Bills are supposed to be great. And then a couple years after that, the Music City Miracle happened. So I always associate the Jags with my descent into madness as a little kid and a Buffalo Bills fan. So anytime they play the Jags, and then of course they lose to the Urban Meyer Jags, it's just not a good recipe for the Bills and the Jags usually when they meet. But I digress. High level thoughts on this team. This is a team that ridiculous comeback last year in the playoffs against the Chargers, but kind of an overall comeback in the season that I was super pumped with. Early on, maybe week 3 or 4, I shot my shot and I called the Jags to win the AFC South, and I was looking like a fool for a good portion of the year. And then they came on strong. Doug Pederson really took hold in this offense. Trevor Lawrence seemed to ascend. Then they make the Calvin Ridley move. He comes in this year and it starts out really fun. Things have kind of petered off a little bit. We're going to talk about several of those pieces as we go forward in this episode, but high level thoughts, what's in your head when it comes to this Jags team? Again, this is the team that's near and dear to your heart, but with your knowledge of ball and how you break things down structurally and schematically, what's going on with this Jags team? Do you feel like they're underachieving? How disappointed are you? Or is it not really anything to worry about because we're 4 weeks in? High level thoughts, where are you at with the Jags?
This is a Jaguars team that I think is still trying to figure out what they want to do on offense. I think what they wanted to come into going into the season, they were planning on being more efficient in the red zone. They wanted to be I think I wrote about it a couple weeks ago when I wrote about like what I thought was wrong with the Jaguars at the time. If we're making comparisons to basketball, they are the DeMar DeRozan of the NFL. They're not going to
I
shoot.
loved this piece in your article.
They're not going
It
to
was
shoot the
so
threes and
apropos.
the dunks. They are going to shoot the contested mid-range jumpers. Like they're gonna want to live in the 10 to 15 middle of the field area. It's kind of like how the Cowboys were last year. This very brutally efficient offense that wants to run the ball. They want to use their robot superhuman quarterback to be more efficient in those areas. And the hope was Calvin Ridley would help you get there. But
Yes.
I think a lot of things that have happened with this Jaguars offense is kind of the idea going in isn't working out early. Calvin Ridley had a great first game, and I think it kind of set expectations for him a little too high, considering he hasn't played football in 2 years. He looks rusty. That's really what it is. It's not just the drops, it's slipping on routes. Like that's kind of like, like he slipped on a couple routes in London, and I was like, oh, this guy's still trying to figure out, like, hey, he's trying to get his sea legs under him. As far as the offensive line, Cam Robinson was out for the first 4 weeks of the season, and it feels like they actually kind of miss him because it feels like the play calling is a reflection of not trusting your offensive line. What I've complained about the Jaguars a lot this season is the offense is very horizontal. When I talk about them being brutally efficient, they're going to poke and prod at you with screens, with quick game, with RPOs. They're going to keep doing that over and over and over. Then you overcommit, and boom, they're hitting you with 10-yard digs or level routes over the middle of the field. But you can't really get to that 10 yards or the 15 yards. You can't generate explosives because you can't trust the offensive line enough to block for that long. I think Walker Little has played really well. Anton Harrison struggled early, but he's put together a really good last couple of weeks. Brandon Sheriff has been hurt, but he still played rather well. It's really just the center and the left guard. And when you knew left guard was going to be an issue coming into the season, they didn't address it because, the thought was Ben Bartch will play well. But even then, Ben Bartch was coming off of major knee surgery. So they kind of knew going in, like this team was going to be based on a lot of internal improvements. They didn't make a lot of big splashy moves outside of the Calvin Ridley deal. They were hoping for a lot of internal improvements. And really, they kind of just got to chill out. That's why I said at the end of the story, like they just need to relax.
Yeah.
They need to figure out, like, hey, let's play a little loose. Everybody's feeling like they're a little tight. You can tell because I think John Shipley, who writes for SI Jaguars, is something I'm going to get into when we talk about keys to the game. The Jaguars' early down offense is among the 15 best in the NFL. They're one of the 10 best in success rate in the entire league. Then you get to late down offense, and they become one of the worst teams in the league.
I have some of those notes too. That's super funny.
Yeah, their success rate goes from 8th on early downs to 28th on late downs. It's really just a combination of pre-snap penalties and poor execution. They just got to chill out, You just got to relax sometimes. What was thought going into the season as kind of a weak point, but now as a strength for this team is the defense. The defense has played phenomenal to start the season, and you can kind of boo-hoo it away as like, oh, they played the Falcons and they played the Colts in week 1. The Chiefs only scored 14 points, 17 points on this team.
Yeah, the defense kept it close. Yeah.
Fantastic performance. They're one of the best teams at defending the run in the entire league. They're one of the 5 best teams at defending the run in the entire league. Again, they're counting a lot on internal improvement. It hasn't happened yet, but this is a long season. So I feel like they'll ultimately be fine, but it is week 5. You're starting to run out of answers a little bit.
Yeah, once you start to get, I feel like that quarter mark, like it's when, I guess it's not really a true quarter mark now since there's 17 games, which I hate. I hate that there's no like even did not like divider piece. So there's no true quarter mark or halfway mark and all that stuff. But yeah, once you get to like week 4 or 5, whatever, once you have those first 4 games under your belt, I feel like that's when, especially too, like that's usually how teams scout like your first four, your last four, your most recent, you put them into that package. And I feel like that's when like fan bases start to click, especially as like the weather starts to turn and you get into October. And I feel like people start to feel like football's really here. What the hell's wrong with my team? Like type thing. And it's very interesting to see like what's happened with this team. And again, I'm pumped to have you on here. And I already like some of the things you mentioned because I was grinding some Jags tape in preparation for this week, but obviously I don't watch as much Jags tape as you do. But to hear you hit on some of the points that I had noted makes me think like, well, okay, these are significant pieces, even more so than I already thought. So I'm super pumped to get into it. Before we do that, I have to bring this up. Appreciate the comment from Amy. Amy says the tree looks great with the purple. She gave a heart to my wife. She said, appreciate you and yours, Anthony. Excuse me for the off-topic. Go Bills. No. I greatly appreciate it. So JP, I keep a Christmas tree up all year round. Long story short, if you don't know, since my wife and I have always been together, I've tried to keep the Christmas tree up in the living room for as long as possible. I've made it to March. Actually, I've made it to April before. Then I had an idea of leaving the tree up all year round, but decorating it with different garland and ornaments based on the holiday. So like Easter, you do pastel garlands for like an Easter tree. Like March, you just do a whole bunch of green stuff. St. Patty's Day, red, Valentine's Day, all that kind of stuff. I lost that battle, but you got me a little tree and I keep it in the office and I keep it up all year round in my background. And Amy here has been kind enough to notice the change. So we went away from the blue and red and white garland. Now we got some purple and black and orange for Halloween. We got some little mini orange trees and a candy corn mini tree. There's a pumpkin up there. There's a pumpkin there. So I wanted to shout out Amy for recognizing that. Most of the people who tune into the show, they don't care about football. It's to see what kind of background I got going on.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah. See, you get it. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
You and I get each other. I appreciate you.
I mean,
we get it.
As you can tell, very, very much a respecter of backgrounds. Yes. Very, very cultivated. I call this my little nerd corner. So
it's beautiful. And your background, the background's real. Like you have to. It tells like it gives some insight into who you are and which graphic novels I have there. I've got more down there that like you can't see, and I always debate like, should I put some up or should I put? Because I'm waiting for somebody to like zoom in and be able to like pick it, like what novels I have on like my shelf. And I'm like, well, should I put my favorite ones on the second shelf so they say more about me? It's kind of stressful, but also awesome at the same time. But I digress. Are you ready? Breakdown. Keys,
I'm ready.
Schematic pieces. All right. You are the guest, much like you were last week. So without further ado, the floor is yours. Whatever you want to lead off with, schematic components that will decide Bills versus Jags in week 5. JP, I pass the mic to you. Go and Godspeed.
So first thing that I think of if the Bills want to win this game is the defensive line has to once again play very good in the pass rush. Like I said at the front, the Jaguars offensive line has not played that great. It's been kind of up and down. The offensive line has played better last week than they did in previous weeks, but you're getting Cam Robinson back, his first game off suspension. They're going to be retooling the offensive line. I have no idea what's going to happen at right tackle. I don't know if they're going to move Walker Little to right. I don't know if they're going to make Anton Harrison the swing tackle. I don't know if they might move him to guard or not, but it'd be weird to do that 4 weeks into the season. I know Doug Pederson mentioned, and it was very weird when he mentioned it at this point because it was like a couple of months before scouting has started for the NFL draft. But they just mentioned, like, I think it was like the exit interviews. They're like, yeah, Walker Little can also play guard too. And it's like, that's weird. You didn't mention that at all before, but now you're mentioning it now. It's a very weird thing to me. But I'm not sure what's going to happen there, but that's a huge thing. I think the Buffalo defensive line dominated against the Dolphins on Sunday, not only in flustering Tua, but making sure to win up front in the run game. The interior defensive line played great. One of the things that the Jaguars like to do is, like I said, they are very much a poke and prod offense instead of they're going to try and hit you with 30-yard bombs or 20-yard plays consistently. They're just going to be like, okay, you're going to give us these 6-yard plays. We're going to take the 6-yard plays. We're going to hit you with little 5-yard screen routes. We're going to hit you with Evan Ingram on drag routes across the middle. It might not mean much in the moment, but then like we get into the later parts of the game and you see that little over route, you see a little drag route coming across, and then the corner is like driving down hard on it, and boom, they're hitting you with an over. So you have to get pressure up front. I think Trevor Lawrence has played great this year, but one of the things that I'm not going to say he's regressed, but it hasn't been as good as last year in terms of he's getting through his progressions a lot quicker. than he did last year. I think his internal clock was better last year than it was this year. And I think it's because of the pressure. But I think that's where you have to win up front. You got to win up front if you're the Bills' defensive line. Can force the Jaguars' offense to constrict themselves. Like I said, they're very horizontal right now. You can't get any explosives because they don't trust the offensive line. If they can't generate the explosives with the run game and running downhill, and you're forcing them to consistently throw screens, that's kind of how the Chiefs beat the Jaguars. They forced them into constricting themselves. They couldn't generate any plays downfield. And that forced them into 3rd and longs or like 3rd and 8 to 10s. And on those 3rd downs, you're basically saying like, hey, Trevor, go save us. And he has the ability to do that. Like the touchdown to Calvin Ridley, Trevor Lawrence has the ability to do that. Yeah. You can't just say, oh, blitz him, he's going to turn into a pumpkin. Like, no, that's not what Trevor Lawrence is. Trevor Lawrence can still do that. It's just you want to force him to be so much of a football robot to be like, okay, I see this blitz. I'm going to get the ball to what I know is the right option and try and be like, okay, we're going to rally and tackle. So defensive line and winning up front is going to be the biggest thing.
How much, and if you have this in a later point, feel free to tell me to shut up and you're going to use it later. But how surprised are you at some of the kind of self-constriction for Jacksonville, given like how quality Doug Pederson is as a schematic designer and play caller? Like, how are you surprised at all, or are you still chalking it up to like relax and chill out type of thing? Like, is it anything that kind of hits you hard, like considering how he turned them around last year and legitimately how good of an offensive mind he is?
I'm not sure if I'm surprised in terms of the play calling, because as much as Press Taylor's kind of caught the flack of Twitter and of Jacksonville Jaguars fans, I think he's done a fine job. I think the biggest thing is there are certain parts of your playbook you cannot call if you can't block. Like there are certain things that you can't do if you can't win up front.
This sounds like the Bills offense last year. This was literally a piece of like, well, how come they can't do this? It's like guys are coming open, but by the time they come open, Josh Allen's running for his life behind that offensive line.
Yeah, it was a perfect example. During the game last week in London, Trevor Lawrence missed Christian Kirk on, I think it was like a little stutter go in the middle of the field in the red zone. And I think Darren Orlovsky said on the during the broadcast, Trevor has to hit that. The problem is pressure is immediately coming off the left side. Trevor's rolling to his right. Do you want him to throw that ball back across the middle of the field? Yeah. That's really dumb. And that's not something that Trevor Lawrence is going to do. So that's really it's pressure, I don't think it's as much play calling. I think the play calling has been weird in some areas in terms of sequencing. And why would you call that here? But I think a lot of it is due to, they don't believe in their ability to win up front. And I think you see a lot of their issues in the red zone come from they don't believe in their ability to block up front. And, that's something that they thought they had addressed going into this season. That's why you go and draft Anton Harrison in the first round. You draft Brenton Strange and take Bigsby on day 2. You want to be better in the short yardage and in those areas. And Brenton Strange has been great as a run blocker. It's just, sometimes the offensive line, like when we say the game is won and lost in the trenches, it's not just, oh, you can't block. It's, oh, we can't block. We can't call this certain play. We can't call these 5-step dropbacks because he won't have time to throw. You can't throw these long developing routes to get explosive plays because you cannot block. That's a negative play waiting to happen.
It seems so simplistic, but also I feel like people don't connect it enough of just the idea of like, in order to throw the ball downfield, you need to let the guys run downfield. And in order to let the guys run downfield, you have to either drop deeper or hold on to the ball longer. And you can't do those things if your offensive line can't protect. And it's just so funny to hear you say that. Like not to always I feel like so many conversations on the show come back to Ken Dorsey and the Bills offense. But that was one of my big things like last year. There were all these like, and again, I think Dorsey deserved criticism at certain points, but there were just certain things like they could not get to because like Josh Allen doesn't have protection. Like guys are getting beat in a second and a half and he's running for his life and he's doing everything he can and he's avoiding sacks. He's not, those pressures aren't turning into sacks. And so people focus on the man, like Josh Allen's like amazing, like he's a magician back there, the pocket navigation. But within that amazingness from Josh Allen is like people are losing, I think, the bigger picture, which is like you can't get to certain play calls. You can't get to certain concepts. You can't work certain areas of the field because your protection plan can't hold up front. And yeah, that's severely limiting for an offense. I'm in that area of, the conversation for my first point here. I labeled it broad term, like Sean McDermott versus the Jags offense. It could be Sean McDermott versus Doug Pederson, however everybody wants to label it. Like, I don't care. McDermott in this Bills defense, I mean, especially after their performance against Miami this year or last week, just he's been absolutely rolling this year, varying coverages. I mean, we talked about several of the pieces last week, but just him varying coverages, disguising coverages, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, simulated pressures, creeper pressures, 5 and 6 man pressures. And I also think maybe even most importantly, or more importantly, the defense is playing with the intensity and aggressiveness that mirrors Sean McDermott's personality and the defensive tree that he comes from in Philadelphia under Jim Johnson. And then you look at a lot of metrics. Bills coverage unit, they're second in EPA per play allowed on defense at negative 0.36. Negative for defense, for those who don't know, is good. It means like on an average like play, like you are taking away the offense's opportunity to score points. So they're second best in EPA per pass on defense. The Bills defense has the second lowest QB rating against. They're first in interceptions. They have almost triple the amount of interceptions as they do touchdowns allowed. They're third in pressure percentage at 44.3%. They're first in sack percentage at 12.2%. And they're third in stuff percentage as a run defense group. Stuffs are runs that go for 0 or fewer yards. And then what you talked about it a little bit, you flip it to the other side of the ball. Here were the numbers that I had for like first and second down pieces versus third. Because I was in watching the Jags, I was trying to like, and I don't have some like some type of revolutionary or like a revelatory verbiage here, but I was trying to like figure out like the best word to describe the Jags offense so far this year. Because I've watched several games live and then watched several games on tape. And I ended up like settling on sluggish or disjointed. And then I looked at the splits between first down and second down and third, and disjointed just seemed even better. So per SIS, they're 11th in total passing EPA on first and second down. They're 26th in passing EPA on third down, overall 21st in passing EPA. They're 11th in positive play percentage on first and second down. They're 25th on third downs. They're tied for 5th in drops. This other one was a big one. They're 24th in EPA per target as a team. And for a team like, I think Trevor Lawrence is really, really, really good. I expected a bigger ascension for him this year. You add Calvin Ridley, I think shaking off the rust is a very fair point from you. But despite the fact that they paid a boatload of money and everybody laughed at him last year, I thought Kirk was a good fit. I thought Zay Jones was a good fit. I love what they did with Evan Ingram, where Doug Pederson finally used Evan Ingram correctly after him not being used correctly for all those years with the Giants. This is another piece too. So you mentioned this and I got the numbers for it. They're first in total attempted screens. Okay. But they're 22nd in EPA on screens. And again, that's not even EPA per screen. That's total. So they have the volume there, which can make it, I guess, depending on how you look at it, easier or harder to have like a good amount of EPA. But they're 22nd in EPA on screens after having the most attempted. And then, like you talked about it in your article, which you already mentioned earlier, the title, I can't say what the F is wrong with the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's very good. You mentioned the DeRozan piece. I love that snippet that you had there. But, in that article, you talked about how trying to create separation and make life easier for Trevor Lawrence and make things easier in that 10 to 15 yard range, like where they want to exist. And so when I was watching that connected with what I was watching with the tape, because the intermediate bigger range, I was thinking 10 to 19 as PFF defines it, just seems like they struggled in that regard. So I looked at some numbers for Trevor Lawrence there. This year, on throws between 10 and 19 yards, he has a QB rating of 62.1. Last year, he had a rating of 95. This year, he's got a completion percentage of 42.9. Last year, he had a completion percentage of 60.9. So just a vast difference in his efficiency there in the middle of the field and his effectiveness tied in, obviously, to the structural piece in the offense like you talked about. What is surprising, I guess maybe not surprising, but from a deep perspective on throws of 20 or more, Lawrence is crushing it. He's 8 of 15 for 225 yards, 3 touchdowns. He has an average depth of target of 27.8 and a QB rating of 138.2. So he's been crushing it vertically. And then run game, Jags are 32nd, so last in EPA per rush at negative 0.2, and they're 27th in positive play percentage at 33%. There were so many pieces last year when I watched a decent amount of Jags tape in the offseason going through, and like there were so many little things like I enjoyed, like again, Doug Pederson and how we use like Evan Ingram, all the like creative ways that they would get Jamal Agnew the ball, and out of all these like random like personnel groupings and alignments, and the next thing you know, like he's out the back door on an end around. You have no idea how he got the ball, and there's not a defender within 10 yards of him, and there's 2 offensive linemen and Evan Ingram like leading him out the front door. Trevor Lawrence just making like a boatload of throws. Like there were so many pieces that, and I think it ties into your point as well. Like the Jags kind of banking on internal development and growth, like, and which is a fine philosophy. Like, I think you have to do that. If you want to grow as a team, there's only so many mercenaries you can bring in. You have to hope that the guys that you drafted or cultivated, that they take those jumps and they take those steps. And I think that was a fair expectation for this team. I think at least for me, it was, and granted, it still could come, but offensively right now, there's just a lot of inefficiency. There's a lot of sluggishness and like a disjointed feel to a team that, I guess, again, we're early. It's 4 weeks in still, but I just didn't expect that this kind of start for this team.
I think, like I said, a lot of it is they just got to chill out. They really just have to relax. There's a lot of, it's very constricted. Like I said, when you want to live in the 10 to 19 area, you cannot have wrong routes or slipping on routes or dropping passes. Like you can have that in any offense, but when you want to be so efficient that you want to get there, like you want to live in those areas, if you don't get there on 1st and 10, now you're in 2nd and long. Now you're in 3rd and long. Like that's creating these really bad situations. It's partially why the Jaguars are so bad on 3rd down, because you're shooting yourself in the foot. You can't have penalties on 2nd down and like 5 after you get a successful play on 1st down. That moves you to 2nd and long. Now you shot yourself in the foot. I think in this piece that you mentioned, there's a piece of film where like Trevor Lawrence trips Travis Etienne on like 3rd and 1. Or like 3rd and 2. The play only goes for
I think it's a Nate Tice clip, and he titled it "The Aristocrats."
Yeah, it's very much just it's a little inside zone. They run it all the time. Where like Trevor does a little inside zone action, and then he runs as well to give like the fake part of it. But he just trips him.
ETN just straight eats it. He just straight face plants like right.
And the part that was kind of interesting to me was the inefficiency of the run game, which I thought has been really weird because watching the film, Travis Etienne has been awesome this year. The burst is fully back. I think the vision still comes and goes, but you get him into space, and that's where I think they really need to start doing that more. Get him into space. Start getting him, instead of running all these inside zone, excuse me, which is partially what the Doug Pederson offense is. Yeah. But you get him running outside, get him a lane, and he's looked so good. He's looked so good in the passing game. Mm-hmm. I think Tank Bigsby has had some rookie moments. The pick in the Colts game where it doinks off his face mask, and then the fumble for a touchdown where he just doesn't know what's going on. Those are very much rookie moments, but he's shown that he has his moments of like showing that contact balance that really made him a special back coming out of Auburn. But it's really just the offensive line has got to play better. That's really what ties this whole thing together. You're hoping that Cam Robinson comes back. But again, like I said up front for keys for the Bills, this is going to be a new offensive line probably. You're going to be bringing in a left tackle that hasn't played football since the preseason. I don't think he played in week 3 of the preseason. So it's going to be interesting, but you have to win up front.
Yeah, that's fair. And it's funny, like so many games are decided in the trenches. And that was one of your first points last week for Bills Dolphins was, how specifically the interior for the Bills and how they would show up. And they did. I love the point too, like you're talking about like the inefficiency of the Jags run game. I wasn't expecting that either. Like I just looked up their EPA per rush just to like see what it was. And I kept scrolling and saw that they were 32nd. And I was like, I literally thought I had a filter incorrect. And so I went back and checked everything and it came up again. And I really like ETN. Like, I know everybody's today's, mold and motto of like not taking running backs in the first round, but I was okay with the type of electricity and juice that he has. Like, I was fine with it towards like the later part of the first round. And yeah, you see him at times and the juice is so real. The burst is so real. And even with like the lack of vision at times, he's got the speed that kind of like makes up for it. Almost kind of like how early Josh Allen, when he wasn't throwing with anticipation and reading things, it was like, well, I have a laser for an arm, so I can be late and I'll just fire it in there and everything will be fine. I wasn't anticipating that poor of like an EPA per rush standpoint for them. But again, I mean, if your offensive line play is poor overall, you're going to be inefficient no matter what. And then especially too, I think that ties into like, talking about the discrepancies that we're seeing for their passing attack, what's happening on third downs versus early downs. What happens on third downs? It's usually more of a known passing down. And so you got defenders who are pinning their ears back. Your offensive line is put under more stress and they're not able to hand up in these more known rush scenarios, let alone what's happening in the run. So very good point there overall. To start off, what is your second schematic component that you think will decide this game?
My second schematic point is forcing the Jaguars defense to win without blitzing. Ooh. I think the Jaguars defense, and it's been the entire Mike Caldwell thing. So a little background on Mike Caldwell. He used to be the linebackers coach in Tampa Bay under Todd Bowles. That should tell you everything you need.
Yep.
This is exactly who the Jaguars want to be. 5-man fronts, very big. They are huge as heck up front. That's partially why they're so good against the run on early downs on that defense. They are so good against the run because they have guys like Foley Fatukasi, Roy Robertson Harris, Josh Allen, and Trevon Walker are both menaces in the run game. I think Trevon Walker's played phenomenal against the run this year.
Yeah, he's fourth amongst 116 qualifying edges in stops, and then he's 15th in stop percentage. And I mean, you see the athleticism and like the burst and the physicality, like it works in speed to power at times in the pass rush, but it just pairs so well as a run defender. Like he can just compress and squeeze with so much force.
He's a monster in the run game. And some of the stats on early down defense, their EPA per play is 5th in the NFL. Their success rate is 6th in the NFL on early downs. Their rushing EPA is 13th, but their success rate is 5th in the NFL. They are very good at stopping the run and stopping early downs. That is what they are built up front to do. They want to win. They want to force you into third and longs where they can blitz you. And what you want to get them to do is go away from that. Don't let them blitz you. And this is something that, having Josh Allen is going to help out with a lot, because if you blitz him, he's going to find the area where you came from. But the biggest reason why you want to do that is outside of Josh Allen, the Jaguars have not found a good complementary pass rusher yet. Trevon Walker is not there yet. It's not happening right now. I think he's kind of being miscast. I don't think he is a edge rusher on pass downs. I think he is a early down edge defender. Then you kick him inside on passing downs. I think I was actually talking about this with some of my friends who cover the Jaguars. It's kind of Danico Autry-ish. I think.
Oh, good comp.
Body style in terms of just mean as hell against the run, and then you use him as a denter or a looper on pass rush games or inside. You don't say, hey, Danico Autry, go win one-on-one on the edge. You have another guy for that.
Go run the arc.
Yeah, go bend the loop or something.
Yeah.
No. But the Jaguars have not found that consistent pass rush threat next to Josh Allen yet. And it makes winning with 4 so much more difficult. So looking at some of the stats for SIS, the Jaguars are 10th in the NFL in pressure rate with only 4 defenders. But right now, that's 37%, But when they blitz with at least 5 or more, the pressure rate goes up to 41.7%. So, and this year, the Jaguars' blitz rate is 28.9%, which is 12th in the NFL. They want to show those. One of the things Mike Caldwell's done really well this year is blended the pressure packages with the coverage. They're not going to run like traditional fire zones. They'll run inverted cover 2 a lot. I think they did it. They busted it on against the Texans on the first big CJ Stroud to Tank Dell completion, but Rayshawn Jenkins was supposed to be running the middle, being the middle runner, and he kind of just got lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
But they will do that a lot. They will blitz you. They have the versatility up front to get into weird packages. They'll have Devin Lloyd walk down on the edge. They can get into a lot of different things. You want to force them to get away from winning with pressure, winning with blitzes. Force them to win with 4.
I love that point. I was going to speak about this as one of my last points. Well, I guess my last point, but I'm going to tie it in now because it focuses right in. You look at overall like what the Jags have done up front. And so you see Josh Allen tied for first in sacks with 6. He's had a tremendous year. The Jags, so then you see that and you're like, well, they got like one of the league leaders in sacks. Like, so they must be a really good sacks team. They have 9 sacks. And this is per PFF, who doesn't give half sacks. So if you get a half sack, they upgrade you to like a full sack. They have 9 team sacks. 6 of them have come from Josh Allen. It's very, from a pass rush perspective, and for Bills fans out there, it's eerily reminiscent of, I think the Jags defensive line holistically is much better. So I don't want anybody to get this twisted. But from a pass rush perspective, it's eerily similar to what the Raiders had going on with Max Crosby a couple weeks ago, where you got to account for Crosby, you got to account for Josh Allen, and you can kind of make your peace with like everybody else. You don't have to worry about it. Run defense standpoint, like you mentioned, though, completely different aspect. Like this, again, I mentioned the Trayvon Walker piece, 4th amongst 116 qualifying edges and stops, 15th in stop percentage. But he's somebody who, I mean, he goes first overall, and I think he's in that mold of, you bet on the traits, and you look at this guy who is this ball of traits, the physicality, the juice, the athleticism. It's like, well, we can teach him moves and plan and see what we can stack and do. And it still just hasn't clicked for him yet, but he's such a plus piece as a run defender. And I love your idea of kicking him on the inside, trying to use some of that juice and speed against like heavier dudes on the interior and seeing what he can do. But I think that speaks to the overall bigger picture, which is they still haven't found a complementary piece to Josh Allen on that front, which is, again, like a legitimate shame because he is such a stud. So good.
And like, it's a shame because it's not like they haven't tried, Caleb on Chison was supposed to be the complementary piece.
Yeah.
He might not have a spot on the roster next year. And he's already been, his snaps have already been cut into by Yasir Abdullah, who was a 5th-round rookie.
Yeah.
That tells you where they're at right now from a pass rush perspective, especially with DaQuan Smoot not being back yet. DaQuan Smoot last year was one of the team leaders in pressures, but he tore his Achilles before the playoffs started. He's not going to be back for a while. But that was a main source of their pressure off the edge. Excuse me. He allowed them to move Trayvon Walker on the inside. You have a guy like last year with Arden Key who could win on the edge. You allow Trayvon Walker to move to the inside. Now you get more versatile. One of the plays I think about for this perfectly is the game-winning strip sack against the Titans last year. Trayvon Walker was on the inside. Arden Key was on the outside. And it was a little stunt. And Rayshawn Jenkins comes off free because of the attention Trayvon Walker creates because he just blows up the guard.
Yeah. He's perfect for you want spiking him inside. Just let him cause chaos and let other dudes roam free.
He is a havoc maker. He is not a pass rush winner. He is a denter, a looper. He is someone who's going to create pressure from the inside. He might not get the sacks though. But that's really where you have to play him on the edge because you have nobody else to do that. So really what you want to do is you want to force them to win with 4, win without blitzing. I don't think Devin Lloyd's going to be in for this game. He fractured his thumb. I think he's going to be missing the next 2 games. Boye Oluokun, very, very good player. Very underrated. I think he led the NFL in tackles for the last 2 years, but people kind of see that as empty tackles. No.
Yes.
That he's capital G good. He makes a lot of run stops. He's partially the reason why the Jaguars run defense is so good and why you can play Devin Lloyd and Chad Muma in so many different ways. Chad Muma is a whole lot better of a run defender than he is in coverage right now. So if the Bills want to attack that middle of the field, and speaking of the Jaguars, I think 4th in EPA per play allowed over the middle of the field. They've been really good over there. So what you want to do is isolate Chad Muma. Find him and win against him because all the other defenders have played very well this season. Andre Cisco's safety just been balling.
Yeah.
He was one of my favorite draft picks. I believe he was one of my favorite urban draft picks, actually. He tore his ACL in college. Last year he was a starter, but he didn't look fully back from that knee injury. Now he looks fully back, and you can tell he has that range back a little bit that made him such a good player in college. I think he had like 15 interceptions in 3 years at Syracuse.
Yeah, wildly productive.
Yeah, he's a ball hawk. So Tyson Campbell, phenomenal. I think Stephon Diggs is probably going to see a lot of Tyson Campbell. Okay. He got an all-pro vote last year, which made me super happy because he was awesome last year.
I liked him at Georgia, and I was like hoping – I didn't know – I wanted to see what his developmental like track would be. And he went to the Jags, and I was kind of like, I don't know what this means like long-term for him. And I've liked what I've seen this year. Like, I love the all-pro piece that you mentioned there. Like, yeah, like I think that's sweet for him. I liked him at Georgia. It's good. It's cool to see him progressing and getting that recognition.
Yeah, early in his rookie year, the Jaguars tried to play a lot of cover 3 and like man, and that's not what he is. He is a quarters cover 2 corner. He's going to sit in that flat, and he knows if you keep the ball in front of him, he's so instinctive, so physical. He's going to make a play on the ball. Darius Williams has played well. I think the Texans game, he had 2 big coverage busts, but he's bounced back from that really well. What you want to do is force the Jaguars to win with their own. You don't want them to blitz. They've shown they're creative enough in blitzing, and they have the athletes to blitz from any and everywhere. Like I believe when you said they have 9 team sacks and 6 of them for Josh Allen, I think one of them is also Andre Cisco. So they will bring pressure with any and everybody.
Yeah, they're just like the productivity that they get from their blitz package piece is really exciting, especially in the day and age where like it can be so. I mean, I guess blitzing has always been like risk reward, but with the quarterbacks and the offenses you see nowadays, like blitzing, it truly is like live or die by the blitz in like today's NFL, and to see like how much they lean on it, when it works, it's tremendous. But against like a quarterback that plays well against it, like Josh Allen, and has the ability to like hit his keys and see what you can do. I love that piece of like making them have to win with 4, because I don't think they can win with 4. Like I think, especially with what the Bills have done, like give some chip help to Spencer Brown if Allen lines up across from Spencer Brown like they've done, and then I think
he's going to be lined up over the right tackle the entire game.
So there you go. Like if he does that, I think for Bills fans tying that in. Similar game plan to what you saw against Max Crosby every time he lined up on Spencer Brown. Similar piece to actually really what you saw against Washington the week after too, with Sweat out there, and then they'd rotate Chase Young too, but mainly it was Sweat over Spencer Brown for the majority of the game. Like giving chip help either right away, having Knox or Cook or Murray or Harris lined up like hipped off of Spencer Brown, or having a running back chip out of the backfield, having an inline tight end lined up next to Spencer Brown. So I imagine they'll give some help to Josh Allen, which also works for how they like to get in some of their sail concept pieces by having that chip help and then have them release into that underneath route. Sometimes Allen hits it right away because there's space, because that sail route or that intermediate route is pulling coverage with it, and he uses it. And even though it's like a delayed route and almost a release valve, he'll use it as like a primary at times, or Dorsey will at least, in terms of designing the offense. Oh, I love this comment from Pete saying, yeah, Knox will be right tackle too again. Yeah, that's basically what it is. Like they're going to have to give him help against Allen. But then the rest of it, the Bills O-line has been a strength this year. Like Wilkins got the better of Osiris Torrance on a couple reps, but Torrance really won the day against Miami. He was sitting there anchoring against Christian Wilkins in pass pro. He was burying him at times in the run. McGovern looked really good against Zach Sealer. Zach Sealer, I think, is legitimately one of the most underrated players in the NFL. Deion Dawkins just embarrassed Bradley Chubb with a cross chop and put him in the dirt a couple times. He looks good in pass pro. Mitch Morse is one of the best pass protection centers in the NFL. Like the Bills now, no jinx, have a quality offensive line. And they have, more importantly, I think they don't, again, if they have a top 10 line, amazing. They just have stability. Like they're not this roller coaster at that spot anymore. And against a team that is inconsistent up front like the Jags, I think that's such a huge schematic piece, because if the Jags can get pressure with 4, then they can play those numbers in coverage like they potentially want to do. But then the Bills have just done so well, like even against like 2-man games against 4-man pressures, like they're just winning up front individually and schematically, like because of the additions of Torrance and McGovern. It's been a huge boon to this team. And then even though Spencer Brown is still that weakest link, because the other four are playing so well and playing consistently, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's an easy fix. Like, oh, we need to give Spencer Brown help. Okay, let's just add a chipper out there. Let's put the running back to his side and have him flow out and help out. And then it's such an advantage for Brown to play off of those alignments and off of that chip help. And again, it's an easy way to kind of neutralize a potential Josh Allen piece. I like that. All right, your last schematic component that will decide this game. What do you got?
My last schematic component is win in late downs. And I know we've talked about it a lot. We've mentioned it a lot in this little segment we've been talking about. The Jaguars on both sides of the ball are not very good on late downs. The Jaguars' late down defense, as good as I said they were on early downs, they go from, I believe, 5th on NEPA per play on early downs to 18th on late downs. We said with the Jaguars offense, they go from a top 10 team in success rate to one of the bottom 7 teams in success rate on late downs. That's where this game is going to be won. And it goes with some of the deficiencies that we talked about with the Jaguars. You know, with the Jaguars offense, they're so constricted up front, and they also want to live in those intermediate areas where every third down feels like a do or die. Like you have to get this, or this game is going to spiral. Even against the Falcons, who have a very good defense, a very talented defense, who's made a lot of plays early. It was up to Trevor Lawrence using his legs, which I think will be a very crucial part of this game. Trevor Lawrence's running ability, because he started to do that a lot against the Falcons in London, where if it wasn't open, he's just going to take off. And he's a good enough of an athlete. Like the dude's 6'6" that can move.
Yeah,
like
he busted off. What was that? The first run, like the 29-yard
one.
I
was
run.
Yeah,
I was watching on the Fun Day Football cast, and they gave him the little flames as he took off because he was scooting.
Yeah, he's 6'6", but he's got long legs. He's like gliding out there. Like I think people underrate his athleticism a little bit because he's that big, but he's got long strides. He'll make up that ground in a hurry, and they'll let him do read options where he'll keep it in some short yardage situations. He's not a Lamar or Anthony Richardson threat with his legs, but
he's athletic.
He's athletic enough to make you pay. And then on the defensive side of the ball, we talked about a lot. We talked about last week changing the picture up front. That's what the Jaguars want to do on third downs. They're going to show everybody. They're going to bring people up. They're going to bring Andre Sisco or Trey Herndon the nickel up to the line of scrimmage and make you think that they are bringing people. They want you to waste blockers. They want you to waste receiving options, thinking, oh, we have to block all these guys up front. So now you're turning a potential 4-man concept into 2 because they have everybody up front at the line of scrimmage. They want you to get in those situations where you're canceling them out yourself, or you don't think they're coming, and then next thing you know, they're bringing all 7 guys. So they want to win with bringing the blitz and bringing pressures on late downs. I think one of the things that'll definitely be important is Josh Allen's ability to diagnose that pressure as soon as he sees it. You know, not necessarily like, going, creative Minecraft creation mode, Josh Allen, where he's like, oh, this blitz is coming, but I'm going to like go and make some plays, because the Jaguars have been good at forcing opponents into turnovers, forcing them into mistakes. They've always been an opportunistic defense. But if you can force them into not being able to send those pressure looks on third downs, force them into 3rd and 5s on defense, 3rd and 6s, where you can't show blitz because we'll just hit you with 5 yards and it's a first down anyway. So winning on third down is really going to be the crucial point for the Bills on both sides of the ball.
Oh, I love that piece. And it's ironic that it ties into like a little bit of what I've liked that Sean McDermott has done for the Bills, but kind of like flipped it where like the Jags want to like, they're showing those pressure looks, but kind of leaning more towards the pressure piece. Sean McDermott is more showing those pressure looks and sprinkling in just enough of them to make you have to honor it, when really he just wants to drop out and rush 4. Like, and even when he is bringing pressure, it's a simulated or a creeper, so it's still only a 4-man rush. But you get the opposite of that with the Jags with, like you said, because like they want to blitz, like that is where they kind of want to live. And I also like that for both of these defenses because again, they do it differently, but I think it ties in to the larger schematic conversation that you have to have around defenses in today's NFL, which is like doing whatever you can to change the pre to post snap picture. It could be with your fronts and a pressure look. It could be with your coverages, as simple as, showing single high pre snap and then shifting to two high post snap or vice versa, or showing a man alignment and then it's actually zone on the snap. Like whatever you can do to make the quarterback have to think a little bit and add beats to his drop back or make him hold on to the ball or confuse the protection. I also love, what you mentioned with Caldwell, like trying to waste blockers. The Bills have been so good at that too. Like, it's just funny how I'm not purposely trying to bring it back to the Bills, but it's just how the conversation like mirrors, because McDermott's done that. Like you show 7 at the line and the offense has to adjust, and then you drop out and you rush 4, and it's like, great, we just kept in our running back and tight end for no reason, and now they're getting out into the route distribution late, and we're at an even bigger disadvantage. But to your point, you show those looks on a 3rd and low medium or a 3rd and short, you're almost at a disadvantage from the jump, because even if you drop out, it's going to be, you have to drop out perfectly to get in those windows and get in those lanes, because you can just get gouged for a quick 4 or 5, and somebody misses a tackle, it could turn even into an even bigger piece. I love that. I love that piece. That's very good. A lot of people in the comments throwing up stuff for likes and things for the episode. I appreciate you folks. If you are enjoying this content and you're watching live or watching later, please, 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 and thank you. Drop a like on this video. It goes a sincerely long way towards helping myself and the entire team at Cover One to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. Likes are the lifeblood of these streams and these algorithms. So if you would be so kind, please, 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 and thank you. Drop a like on this video. I'm going to stick on that side of the ball in terms of Jags D versus the Bills offense. I got basically super niche with this one. How much middle of the field close coverages do the Jags play against the Buffalo Bills? Heading into, this is my biggest gripe with SIS. Their tendency report page does not update until like Wednesday, but the regular like first page with the data does. It's super frustrating. But heading into this past weekend, they had a 51% middle of the field close coverage rate, which was the 9th most. For those playing at home, in case you don't know, middle of the field close means you have a safety, single high safety in the middle of the field, that post safety, so your cover 1s and your cover 3s. So again, 51% rate in those coverages, 9th most heading into week 4. They were also 4th in terms of single high shells pre-snap at 55%. And then in week 4, they had the 7th most middle of the field close coverage snaps, again in week 4. Through 4 games, the Jags have played the 5th most cover 3. They have the 3rd most middle of the field close snaps combined. So cover 3 plus cover 1. So they play a lot of single high. They'll show it pre-snap, and then they play a lot of it post-snap. Traditionally, the Bills and Josh Allen have crushed those types of coverages, and that's continued this year. So against those single high looks, those middle of the field close looks, Josh Allen, he's only 26th out of 35 qualifying QBs in attempts versus middle of the field close looks. He doesn't get a ton of them. But despite only being 26th in attempts, he's 5th in EPA against those coverages. He's 3rd in positive play percentage versus those coverages. He's 5th in QB rating versus those coverages. And he's 1st in on-target percentage against those coverages. And that's the number of on-target or catchable balls a quarterback throws, and then divided by the number of pass attempts. Doesn't include spikes and throwaways, miscommunication, slips, and batted balls at the line. Teams that have traditionally gone single high against the Bills have lost big time. The biggest ones that should come to mind for everyone, not just Bills fans, it seems like Bill Belichick refuses to just not play single high looks against the Bills every year. It's like he's determined to make it work. And it's, okay, cool. Like here's Isaiah McKenzie a couple years ago on these deep crossers and overs. Okay, cool. We're just going to send someone else on these overs and these crossers. Like they hit them just like they bleed it. And then now tying into potentially what the Bills have been doing with 12 personnel, if you get a team that wants to run these single high looks, maybe you start to see more seam balls to Dalton Kincaid or Dawson Knox. I also like your idea, talking about potentially attacking Chad Muma in coverage. One of the pieces that I tied in towards the back end of last week was the Bills trying to use 12 personnel to isolate Dalton Kincaid on Jerome Baker, who was the weaker and weak overall coverage linebacker for Miami. We saw that several reps early on where Kincaid is just basically in a one-on-one scenario against Jerome Baker, making a miss on option routes. He hits him with a pivot route and then pops outside. And as he catches it, he plants and goes back inside as Baker's trying to flow over the top, and he just gets kind of put in like a blender a little bit. So, trying to isolate Kincaid in those situations as well against that type of look. And then also you push it vertical with Kincaid and Dawson Knox. So maybe this is another week where Dalton Kincaid starts to shine a little more, and Bills fans can stop being upset that they took him instead of Sam Laporta, because Sam Laporta had like 5 catches one week and everybody's super pissed. So I think that piece, man, like you really don't see it a ton again, except really for New England. There are certain teams like the Raiders, like will play their single high pieces because they are the Raiders. I'm interested to see if the Cowboys really stick to single high or how much man they play, especially cover one, like against the Bills, when the Bills and Cowboys play later this year. But in today's NFL, like it's so hard to live in a single high world against these explosive offenses, and just like really in general, because teams know how to carve up single high, because it was like I don't know, like the new age thing for so long with the Legion of Boom. Everybody and their mother played it, and then every offense and their mother realized, oh, this is how we beat it, and that's why everybody had to switch like the Fangio 2-high type of scheme and system. So to see how much the Jags lean into that world and kind of how that's what they've been statistically on the year, I'm very interested to see how much they play that against the Bills, who have, again, historically with Josh Allen carved it up, and again this year carving up teams again that play with single high.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, especially with how that coverage ties to the front that Jaguars play. Jaguars love to live in base. They want to be able to play with all 3 of those big D linemen and all 4 of those linebackers on the field at the same time. Trevon Walker, Josh Allen, I'm calling them linebackers for the sake of this. In their base defense, in their base personnel, according to SIS, there are only, I believe, 10 teams in the NFL that have played at least 20 snaps or more with 3D linemen, 4 linebackers on the field. The Jaguars are first in EPA allowed per play in that base defense per play, negative 0.38.
Wow.
They are really good. They got really good at defending the pass out of their base defense. Combine that with their ability to stop the run out of that base defense, you have a conundrum there. They've gotten really good at that. I think where you want to attack them is, like I said, when you get them in those nickel defenses where they take a defensive lineman off the field, when you can force them to win with 4. And that's where they kind of play a lot of that more quarters, they play a lot more cover 2. They do a lot of post-snap rotation.
Okay.
Like you said, they will show too high and then come down with cover 3 or cover 1, but they'll also go the other way. They'll show 1 and then they'll bail into inverted cover 2, or they'll spin a safety back. You'll see a lot of Rayshawn Jenkins hauling ass to the deep half.
Yeah.
Because they got him doing like deep half. They got him as the middle runner sometimes. But that's really what Mike Caldwell wants to do. Like I said, he comes from the Todd Bowles school of defense, where they're going to play big, heavy up front, and they're going to show you, they're going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at you. And I think the Bills offense has to be prepared for them throwing so many different looks at them, not just with what they're going to show on the back end, but up front as well. You know, they can get into so many different looks. They'll have linebackers walk down on the edges and Trevon Walker on the inside, but then Trevon will drop into coverage and they'll bring a nickel somewhere. They are really good at mixing up those pressure looks. And I wonder how they're going to marry that to playing all that single high. I'm not sure if they play a lot of single high against this team.
I feel like you can.
I don't think you can. I think this is very much, if there's any Mike Caldwell game that I kind of compare it to, it's kind of like, I think it's kind of like the Chargers game last year, late in the second half. You cannot play single high. You cannot do that.
Yeah,
I think you got to play cover 2. You got to play quarters, and you got to try and win up front. You know, I think they've been so good, like I said, at defending the pass out of base. So I wonder if they just stick with that the entire game, just rock and roll with it, you know?
Fair. Like, especially if it's like worked for them, like at a certain point, it's kind of just like, maybe you don't try to get too cute and you dance with the girl that brought you, and you know, we're rolling with this and let's roll with it. And I think that also ties into like, I was debating making this one of my points because I did it last week, but I'm kind of going to keep doing it every week. Like the whole Josh Allen versus himself type thing. All it takes is if you're showing these like looks, and if you're creative with your pressure or creative with how many like post snap rotations you have, right? all it takes is like one of them to click. Maybe the offensive line reads, the pressure package wrong, or the QB doesn't identify who the free man is or who he's responsible for, or, again, anything that could happen with a pressure look versus what happens on the snap. Or again, you're running inverted 2 and you misread it and you think you got something in the middle of the field, psyched, like Rayshawn Jenkins is there, like running that pole and he's got it and you get picked. Something like that could potentially happen early on, just because, again, you got fooled. It happens. If a team is really committed to changing the pre to post snap picture, at some point you're going to guess wrong, unless you're just like a superhuman, like computer brain, which is possible with a lot of the QBs we got. But I always think of, okay, I don't know, maybe they get to Allen early with some kind of pressure and you get a strip sack, or Josh Allen for the Jags causes havoc like he did the last time Bills and Jags play. Again, no DaQuan Smoot, who had a phenomenal game for them in 2021 against the Bills. But somebody just comes screaming off the edge free, or somebody wins inside quickly and there's a strip sack and a fumble and Jags ball. Or again, Allen reads something or misdiagnoses or thinks, oh man, this is man. And psych, that corner, he's not bailing, like, and it's not man, like he's actually a cloud corner. And you thought you were hitting Kincaid on that option route outside. Nope. Campbell was sitting and he read it. He jumped it and he got picked. And then I wonder, okay, like, does he settle and get back? Or do we start to see similar conversation that I'm going to keep bringing it back? Like, does he stack mistakes because he's pissed at himself for, like, man, I can't believe I didn't recognize that pressure. I can't believe I didn't see that safety spin. That's so stupid. Let me go out the next play, and I need an 80-yard touchdown on this next play. And then he makes a poor decision on third down, and it's an interception or something like that. Like, with teams who will force you to diagnose and process accurately pre to post snap. Again, this isn't a knock on Allen or really anybody. At a certain point, it's bound to happen. Like, you're going to diagnose incorrectly, especially if you throw that type of volume and change in the picture. And if that happens early on, it's different if it happens late and the Bills are up 24-3 or something like that. And it's like, oh, okay. But if it happens early, say it happens on the first drive, or the Jags don't go down and get 3 on the first drive, and then Bills are trying to score and Allen turns it over or something. If it happens early, I think there's always that chance that Allen gets pissed at himself and can stack those mistakes and things can snowball a little bit. And against the team trying to change the picture that much like the Jags do, I think there's like a fair shot from an odds perspective of maybe the O-line diagnosis wrong, Josh Allen diagnosis wrong, or, a receiver misses their key because they thought, someone wasn't blitzing and they did, and Allen thought they would read it and they didn't, because this offense, receiver to quarterback relationship, a lot of it still is based on like that post-snap reading and adjusting of coverage, and you and Josh Allen having to see the same thing at the same time. So I think that could be a real interesting piece. If they can turn the ball over or turn Allen over early and then build off that success and get into his head a little bit, that could be a potential recipe for success. And then that ties into their base package looks and or their pressure looks, because now when they start showing it, then it kind of flicks into Allen's brain a little more, and I think kind of pokes him and prods him, and then maybe you start to increase that snowballing effect a little bit if you're the Jags.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, it's kind of the best way to force Josh Allen into mistakes. It's not showing one coverage at the back end and then bringing someone up. It's no, show a blitzer coming and make it be like, oh, shit, there's somebody right there. I got to think quicker, or I got to go. Now he's starting to think too much. Then the brain starts going haywire and he goes, screw it. We're going Minecraft creative mode when you don't really have to. And sometimes in creative mode, you end up creating a bomb and it blows up and nothing ever works. So that's what the Jaguars want to do. I think they want to force him. It's like a conversation we had last week. Force the issue up front. This defense is not a react attack. They are we want to be in your face up front. We want to dictate how this game goes up front. They've shown it through all their personnel decisions, especially up front against the run. They want to dictate how this game goes from the jump. One of the things that stood out about the Bills game last week against the Dolphins was how much the Bills were effective in the run game, running duo, running those things like inside zone. The offensive line was really good. That's something that I think is going to be crucial in this game, because, again, Jaguars are really, really good against the run. They are built to stop the run. They want to play in base so they can stop the run. So if you can't get that going early, does that get into Josh Allen's head a little bit and be like, oh, I have to do everything to keep this offense afloat? And then with him thinking he has to do everything, he's going to make a mistake because we've seen this before.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like and it doesn't happen often, and that's why Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the league and is like not even best quarterbacks, like one of the best players in the NFL at this point. Just he's so deadly, and when he goes into that, like I always say, chaos creation. I like the Minecraft creation mode from you. Like even though it is risk reward, usually odds are it ends up being more reward than risk. But that's how you beat him. Like you force him. You either force the offense schematically to get all put on him, or you force him to think that it all has to get put on him, and then you hope those mistakes come. And part of the reason that hasn't happened recently, I think Josh has made a concerted effort. There's been a lot of schematic pieces from Ken Dorsey. And I think the other piece is, the run game, like you said, has been successful. The Bills run game on this year has been, right now they're second in EPA per attempt, and they are also second in total EPA on the ground. James Cook, second in rushing yards going into the week last week, or going into the year last week, only behind Christian McCaffrey, had a bunch of really good stats and advanced metric pieces as well that I can't remember off the top of my head. But this run game has been very successful, and you go up against a Jags team that is good at stopping the run and maybe tries to force everything onto Josh Allen's plate, because I think that's really how you have to beat the Bills. And then again, it's still just kind of playing the odds, because you could force it all onto Josh Allen, and then it's like, well, we forced it onto him, and he threw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, and we lost. You're just trying to hope that you can force it all onto him, and then hope that that Hyde side of him comes out, that evil side, or sugar high, whatever people like to label it as, the week one, Jets Josh Allen. Or, maybe he stays super efficient and explosive like he did against Miami, and you try to put stuff onto his shoulders and you see what happened. But that's been a recipe. And again, if you can get Jags Josh Allen to do some pieces, or do some things up front, it'd be very interesting schematically. I'm excited, for, Trevor Lawrence is a really good quarterback. I know he's underwhelmed to start the year, but you've got quality offensive minds on that side of the ball. You've got some good pieces. I'm very interested to see what the offensive line looks like for the Jags with Cam Robinson coming back. And then, defensively, that's really where it is. I think we talked last week here about how interesting the Dolphins offense versus Bills defense was schematically. I think it's flipped, for this week. Jags defense, Bills offense, and how they match up, what the Jags can do to try and attack Josh Allen. Can they make the Bills offense one-dimensional? Because no one really has. Cook has been effective. Murray's been effective. Harris has been effective. And then Allen has just been an absolute monster after week one. And, can you make him inefficient, or does he continue to gouge you? I'm very excited for this game. And I was very excited to be able to bring you back, to break this down and talk about these pieces. And you're truly fantastic. You crushed it last week. You crushed it again this week. Yeah, you deserve it. I appreciate you taking the time. And just in case people didn't watch last week, or maybe didn't pay attention when you plugged your stuff, let everybody know who you are, where they can find you, what you do, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to remove the banner so they can see your Twitter handle. The floor is yours. Do as you wish.
Awesome. Yeah. So, of course, I'm the NFL, college football, I just say football writer at SB Nation. Wherever there's football being played, I'm probably there tweeting about it. One of my favorite things I do every week is on Friday, called Establish the Fun. Column I write about things that I find fun about football every week. It's going to be fun this week. I'm incorporating more college football. Of course, NFL is going to be in there a lot. There's a lot of fun stuff going on in football. So make sure to follow along with what all we do at SB Nation. But yeah, it's going to be a fun game. I'm super excited. I think this is a Jags team that's been kind of up and down, but when they play to their potential, this is a team that is scary. And on the offensive side of the ball, you have a quarterback who can win you this game. Yeah. I think one of the points that we didn't talk about a little bit was forcing Trevor Lawrence and forcing the Jaguars to be explosive when they don't want to. But of course, like you said, Trevor Lawrence is so good this year throwing the ball deep. A lot of that is coming out of structure on broken plays. Cool. He is very much a football robot, but when he goes into that creative mode, he can hurt you. So force them to play that in structure, force them to be explosive in structure, and see what happens, because it's going to be a really interesting game. I think this Bills defense is really disciplined. I think they're not going to fall as much for the bait and switch of the Jaguars offense as they're going to keep, like I said, they're going to keep poking you. We talked about last week. They're going to throw a lot of jabs. They are a jab puncher. And if we're comparing it to boxing or MMA, they will throw that jab. they are willing to throw the jab through the first 3 rounds of the game just to get you to that one haymaker in the fourth. Yep. They will get you to that one point. But this Bills defense is so good at defending the jabs that you can't run that haymaker because they're ready for it.
That's fair. And I like that a lot, like the haymaker and jab analogy. And I wonder too, like, does the haymaker come from, something off script from Trevor Lawrence? Does he make a free runner miss, or like he did in the touchdown to Ridley on Sunday? Like, he makes that free runner miss for the Falcons, just a quick little, change with the shoulder, steps up, boom, like explosive downfield. Like, I wonder how much his athleticism, I think it's I shouldn't say like a wild card because he is athletic, but I think to your point, like, it's a piece people don't really talk about enough with Trevor Lawrence. Like, even though he ran like a bunch of read option stuff at Clemson and he would like keep it and take off, but especially like his first year as a starter there at Clemson, but like his ability to create off script isn't really talked about, whether with his legs or his arms. But to your point, this Bills defense has been so good at causing chaos for quarterbacks or confusing them and then being disciplined on top of it. So, it's all very interesting, like from a schematic perspective. And I'm not excited to wake up super early.
Oh,
like, no, I don't want to do it again. You have to do it 2 weeks in a row now with the Jags playing back to back. But I'm not excited to wake up early. And I don't like the whole idea of like the time change and travel. The London game to me is like a Thursday night game where like anything can happen. Like, I'm always like, I'm super paranoid all the time with that kind of stuff, but we'll see what happens. This is going to be a very exciting game. I think, from a schematic perspective, good individual players, good coaches on both sides of the ball, and then seeing how everything matches up and fits in conjunction with one another. JP, you crushed it. I kept you longer than I should have again, so which I sincerely apologize for the second week in a row. But I hope this time you kind of expected it after what happened last time.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I've always booked like at least like an hour and a half out with you, man.
Fair. I appreciate you. I'll see you over on Twitter. Again, everybody give JP a follow. He's tremendous. Check out Establish the Fun and everything he writes. Like, he's awesome. Again, I appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for joining me. Godspeed. I'll see you on Twitter and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night.
Thanks for having me.
Later, man. Man, I love JP. He's fantastic. Back-to-back weeks. Just enjoy having him on the show, like his insight, his knowledge, like what he's able to bring. It just happened to be, again, like, dude loves the Jags, covers the Jags a bunch. So being able to bring him back not week after week, but 2 weeks in a row, especially after how fun last week's episode was, breaking down Miami. It was a good time. So major shout out to JP for joining me again. Now, we're going to dive into some stock up and stock down after the Bills' Week 4 victory against the Miami Dolphins. Before we do that, though, I am going to plug the sponsor again, One Pie Pizza, the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. You can find the online menu in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're using to listen to this show on. Delicious sweet sauce pie, cup and char pepperoni. They make their own homemade blue cheese. They do a lot of initiatives and drives with the community and city of Buffalo, partnering with Roswell, Toys for Tots, the SPCA, the Alzheimer's Foundation. Like, they give back in a variety of ways as a business. So, you're doing some good for the community by supporting them. And if you're just, all about yourself, you're doing some good for your taste buds with the product they provide. So go get yourself some One Pie Pizza. It is legitimately tremendous. Again, online menu can be found in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app and or platform you are using to listen to this show on. Stock up, stock down. Oh, Aiden hits it right now. Where we go. Oh, John says, I want a pizza. I always want a pizza every time I talk about One Pie Pizza on the show. Like, it's legitimately a problem. Aiden comes through and says, if anyone deserves a huge stock up, it's Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott is the first stock up piece for me. I think a big, sorry, Beta Jim, I apologize. I think a big piece or takeaway after what happened in this game against the Dolphins for the Bills. That's funny. How do I print the pizza? That's very good. I think after coming out of that Bills-Dolphins game, after how successful the Bills defense was, I think people are, I don't want to say too many, but I saw a lot of takes where, this Dolphins offense wasn't for real. They're not a good offense. It was kind of fraudulent, yada, yada. They're not as good as everybody thought they were. I still think the Dolphins are a very, 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 very good offense. I think the conversation is less about how the Dolphins weren't real and just more of how good the Bills defense is, or at the very least was in that game against the Miami Dolphins. Just what they did from a coverage perspective and mixing their coverages. I mentioned it earlier, like varying their coverages, making something look like man, and then it ended up being zone, playing some of those trap coverages, locking the number one receiver and then playing zone over the top. They dropped Taron Johnson with Hyde and wrap and almost made, a 3 across type of look and coverage. And they did that while they had Dane Jackson come and play man. They tied in their coverages with their fronts and were able to make Tua hold on to the ball and from a coverage standpoint and allowed the rush to get home. Early on, we were seeing kind of a disconnect between the coverages and the fronts, but as the game went on, we saw Tua have to hold the ball because his first read was taken away. And it's not that he's a one read only quarterback. It's his first read would get taken away. And by the time he got to the second read, pressure would start to get there. Or his first read would be taken away. His second read would be taken away. And then pressure got there. We just saw a really good schematic and individual performance from this Bills defense. I think it starts with Sean McDermott, the game plan that he put together from a coverage standpoint and a front standpoint, again, continuing to work in those pressure packages. I've broken down several of them, multiple episodes, I think, from a stock up perspective here on the show these past several weeks. But what he's doing when McDermott brings these 5-man pressures, it's been working. When he brings 6-man pressures, they've been working. His simulateds, his creepers, those have been working. Showing pressure and then dropping out has been working because the threat of pressure is actually real now with what the Bills have shown and how the Bills have executed up front. It's just been a really good performance. Oh, I like this comment from Beta Jim saying it's a combination. The Dolphins offense is very real, but people hyped it to unrealistic levels, as well as the Bills defense being very good. Yeah, this Dolphins offense, again, still a quality unit, but they lost the chess match from a schematic perspective and then again from an individual execution perspective. So hats off to Sean McDermott, hats off to the players, several in particular, which we're going to get into in a minute and break down some tape on. But yeah, Sean McDermott, again, like this, Mike McDaniel's a good play caller and a good designer. Tua and this offense have just, again, they put up 70 points the week before. Granted, Denver's got a whole mess of issues on the defensive side of the ball, but watching what the Bills did, the adjustments that they made, again, tying everything together from their fronts to their coverages, making everything work in tandem, confusing Tua, making him think it was going to be A and then it was going to be B, mixing up their man and their zone coverages and what they were doing and who was dropping and who was going where, not to mention their ability to ID what was going on. You saw a ton in this game of all the pre-snap communication with Terrell Bernard and Micah Hyde and Taron Johnson and everybody kind of communicating, calling out different pieces of who's going to motion here and who's going to motion there. And when you do that, that can sometimes lead to overthinking. And then you get to a point where everybody's trying to call out so much that it's kind of paralysis by analysis, or you call out so many things that nobody kind of gets the message at all, or they get the wrong message, you ID the wrong thing and you get beat. Just watching the Bills consistently execute. Again, the players deserve a huge pat on the back for it, but I think a lot of it starts to come from Sean McDermott and his ability as a defensive coordinator and the successful track record that he has going back again to his time in Philly, his time in Carolina. And then, like I mentioned with JP, how this Bills defense has really kind of adopted his personality and his mindset. We talked about it all offseason and coming into this show this year about Sean McDermott and who he's been as a DC. Attack-minded, aggressive, showing pressure, bringing pressure, changing fronts, changing coverages, fast, physical, aggressive, everybody flying to the football. And we've seen that consistently from this defense. So just from an overall philosophical standpoint, structural standpoint, schematic standpoint, however you want to label it in whatever way, shape, or form, Sean McDermott is a massive, 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 massive stock up for the Buffalo Bills after that week against Miami. And again, you could even give them a bigger stock up with what they did to the Washington offense and then seeing how the Washington offense played against the Philadelphia Eagles defense, who I know aren't in 100%, but seeing how Washington rebounded, knowing what the Bills did to that offense the week prior, like now again, as you get more sample size and you really start to see who teams are, a week ago, the conversation was, well, the Washington offense sucks, so the Bills defense isn't real. Now the Bills have that performance against Miami, and then the Washington offense has that performance against Philly. And now it's a bit of a different conversation. So it's very interesting to see, how the kind of narrative shifts as we get more sample size and more pieces of things. So Sean McDermott, first piece for stock up and stock down. Next piece, I want to go into several individual players. I want to go into DaQuan Jones, Ed Oliver, and Matt Milano. And in order to do that, we are going to, as we do here on this show, we are going to show some tape to break down some of these pieces. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen. First, we're going to talk about Mr. DaQuan Jones, somebody who, I think, again, the line I keep using is everybody recognized the value that he had last year and what he brought to this team once he was out of the lineup against Cincinnati. It just made a huge difference in the playoffs, and he is continuing to just absolutely crush week after week after week. He is, what's my tweet from earlier? I don't remember it. I just saw a super chat and I have to stop and go back because I realized there's another one. Let's stop the share screen from now. Save a Whale Rider running back. I love the name. You're here every week supporting. I appreciate the hell out of you. I apologize for getting into this super chat so late. The comment is McD's defense hasn't faced a mobile QB like Lawrence this year. We'll see if Bernard is maybe a QB spy. That ties into the last pieces we were talking about with JP when it came to Trevor Lawrence's athleticism, what he can do with his legs and what he can do off script. I think it's a fair point. And seeing how, the Bills have used Milano in that spiral previously, just based on how the structure has worked out with Tremaine Edmonds. So it'll be interesting to see, if they do decide to have to go with a spy, is it Bernard? Is it Milano? How does everything work in conjunction? Good point. I like that. And then this super chat from Dave, which is the one that keyed me back to Save a Whale Rider running back, which I apologize for missing that. Dave, appreciate you being here. You're here pretty much every week, and I appreciate the super chat. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the super chat. Dave says, confidence in the D playing at the same level without Trey. Man, like that. I'll mention it now. This was legitimately my only stock down from the week, and it's just emotionally, schematically as well, but I feel so bad for Trey, coming back from the knee injury. He wasn't 100% last year, came back, got better as the year went on, comes into this offseason, year 2 away from that ACL, which is when you start to get back to, I appreciate you. Thank you for still being here, and thank you for forgiving me. I appreciate you. My fault. Having that offseason that he had this year where he just made practice after practice. He didn't miss anything. He didn't need a rest day. He didn't need an off day. It wasn't he's having some swelling. He had a full regular off season. And again, this isn't schematic. This is just feeling for that dude, to watch him battle back. And then and Achilles, the Achilles is the modern day ACL. The Achilles is to football now what ACL injuries were to, the 90s. And it's just disappointing for Trey. I feel gutted for Trey from an emotional standpoint. For him as a person, it just sucks. And he's such a good dude and he means a lot to the team, but just for him as a person, I feel really bad for Trey. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there. That's my only stock down from this game because there's so many other positives to talk about. I feel absolutely gutted for Trey as a human, as a person. But from a schematic perspective, I think there's enough. I'm confident in Dane Jackson. He had a couple good reps in the game against Miami. He had a nice pass breakup on Tyreek Hill on that 2-point conversion. Had a couple really good tackles and blow-ups. He's going to miss some tackles from time to time, but I'm cool with Dane and Benford. And then this is also why you draft corners or you keep that depth at that position. Now Kaiir Elam has legitimate value for this team. I know he hasn't turned into what everybody wanted when the Bills took him in the first round, but I'm okay with a cornerback rotation right now of a top 3 of Dane Jackson, Christian Benford, and Kaiir Elam. And it's because I have confidence in those guys, but then also, and again, no jinx, the talent around them. You have 2 all-pro safety, all-pro caliber safeties in Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. Matt Milano was an all-pro linebacker. Terrell Bernard is playing fantastically. Taron Johnson is one of the best nickel corners in football. And then the defensive line is balling out across the board. Leonard Floyd and DaQuan Jones are both in the top 10 for PFF's pass rush productivity. I think DaQuan is 7th and Floyd is 8th, which is just unreal. And then Groot has been productive. AJ Epinesa has been productive. Ed Oliver has been a monster. And this is all without Von Miller, who in theory should be coming back. So I trust in the rest of the talent around the defense. As Fab says in the comments, there's a very deep team. They're deep from like an overall standpoint, but now from a top end quality standpoint, they're deep as well with players that have emerged and, how guys have stepped up. So I think they have enough talent around, this defense to kind of stem the tide, even though you can't replace a dude like that with how good he is, but they have enough talent, I think, to mitigate his loss. And then a lot of it ties to what Sean McDermott has done. I trust Sean McDermott schematically to mitigate that loss. And then also Sean McDermott traditionally going to his time in Carolina, even in Philly to a degree, but really in Carolina and here with the Bills, he gets the most blood out of the defensive back stone. So I trust him to be able to get the most out of what he can, or get the most that he can out of whoever's going to be playing in the defensive backfield, corners, safeties, whoever. Now, again, that doesn't mean you're not necessarily limited in certain areas, but I trust McDermott to put those corners and the defense as a whole, especially on the back end, in the right positions to succeed, to set them up for failure, mitigate their weaknesses, amplify their strengths. So I know that's a very, kind of long piece answer, but I am pretty confident in the defense without Trey. It still sucks. There's no silver lining. It's not great. There's no plus side to it. The Bills are a worse off defense without Tre'Davious White, but I don't think it means all hope is lost like it did a couple years ago when he went down. I think they have enough talent to stem the tide overall in the defense. And then with what Sean McDermott is doing schematically, I think they can do that as well. But again, super disappointed for Trey and absolutely gutted. As Pete says, it was hard watching the film back with Trey out there. It ruined my whole day once he went down. Like, I didn't even enjoy the win as much. I was just so gutted. I kind of just sat there watching the game. I was just super disappointed. And then following up with a comment there, Dave. Yeah, just spot on. I know you're not replacing him, but just wondering with the way we play schematically, if we are a team who can still play at a high level. Yeah, I think maybe you run less man coverage situations, or you lock certain sides of the ball differently because you don't have Trey, or because, Dane Jackson is a little more athletically limited. Maybe you throw more cover 2 in there and trust your corners to play more cloud or something like that. But again, I know Dane caught a lot of flack last year. Dane Jackson isn't a slouch. And I like this, kind of speaking to what Aiden says here. He may not be an all-pro, but I'm more than confident in Dane to play at a starting level reasonably. I think Dane is like a high-end corner 3, a low-end CB2. I'm okay with that. And Christian Benford has played like a good CB2 this year. So you have 2 CB2s, depending on what kind of tier you want to classify them in or place them in. And they're playing with all-pro caliber safeties, an all-pro linebacker, an emerging linebacker, and then a strong as hell defensive line. I think that's enough to kind of stem the tide. And then again, what Sean McDermott can do schematically, what he's doing with the pressure packages, he can kind of tie that into the coverage piece, alleviate any type of stressors on that back end. So fair point there. Good question. Good comment. I'm going to share my screen now. Also appreciate all the kind words from everyone in the comment or on the comment section. As that super negative guy who apparently hates me left the episode and was only here for JP because I'm terrible. I appreciate everybody saying goodbye to him on his way out. That was enjoyable for me. Film breakdown. Let us do this now. First, DaQuan Jones. I don't know why I'm speaking like that. It's fun cadence. I'm trying to pull up. I tweeted it out earlier. I didn't put it in my notes. Okay, so out of 238 qualifying edges and interior players, the Bills have 2 players in the top 10 for pass rush productivity, which is a formula that measures pressures relative to how many times you rush the passer. DaQuan Jones is 7th. Leonard Floyd is 8th. DaQuan Jones is also 8th in win percentage. DaQuan Jones was brought in to stop the run, to be that piece on the interior to help the Bills play light boxes, take on double teams, and be a force against the run. Him being just this pass rush, I don't want to say savant, but what he's offered on the interior from a pass rush perspective has just been the cherry on top. And the fact that he continues to operate at this pace from a pass rush standpoint in conjunction with what he does against the run, again, just very strong for DaQuan Jones with, what he's done overall in terms of bringing his whole game together. And then against the run, he is out of, let's see, filter snaps here, out of 199 interior. Actually, let me filter that one more time here. Out of 199 edges and interior defensive players, DaQuan Jones is tied for 17th in stop percentage against the run. Ed Oliver is 11th. So again, just tying it back to that DaQuan Jones piece, like a complete player right now with what he's doing against the run, what he's doing from a pass rush standpoint. It is just, oh, this is funny. I see the comments coming through. I'm trying not to get distracted by him. I don't know. Maybe he does know me personally. It seemed very pointed, like an attack on me. He really didn't like me, but to each their own. I like this comment from Walter though, saying maybe somebody finally did what you asked and recommended your stream to their enemies. I like it. I like that. Yeah, absolutely. That's very good. That's very good. Again, some metrics. DaQuan Jones is absolutely killing it. Overall against the pass, against the run, 7th in terms of pass rush productivity amongst 238 qualifying edges and interior players, and then being tied for 17th out of 199 edges and interior players when it comes to stop percentage. Just pass, run. He's really proven to be a complete player. Here he is on this play. I've highlighted him here. Let's play as we go forward here. Just the quickness that you get from him. This is on the 3rd down. Tua ends up scrambling for the 1st down, which I know overall is a negative in the grand scheme of things, but just the quickness that you get from him. I'm going to show it from multiple angles. Here he is again. And again, keep in mind too, like his alignment. So he's lined up over the tackle, almost on the outside shoulder. So it's like, it's not even necessarily in a 4. Like he's even further from that. And this is a player who normally lives in the A gaps or, on, shaded up, or at most like on the inside shoulder of the guard. Like, so him being in a wide alignment here isn't necessarily his forte for his skill set or his size. And watch just the quickness, the quick arm over or swim. But then this is the piece too, the agility. Watch the bend. He drops that shoulder. So he drops that shoulder, the fluidity and the athleticism to do that. But then also look at, again, this is something Eric and I talked about in the film room, the ankle flexion. He's a 300+ pound man. So the strength and the flexibility you have to have in your lower body, in this case, your ankles, to pull this move off. This isn't like trying to make it seem like more than it is. This is a legitimately impressive piece. Watching him use that to dip and get around, and then he straightens up. Tua just makes a play as DaQuan comes through. But again, that's an impressive rep. I know it ends up just being a pressure. He doesn't bring Tua down, but just watching that again, this isn't someone. I know he's 7th in pass rush productivity, but this isn't somebody who is looked at as, well, we got to get our pass rush from DaQuan Jones. Him just adding it is, again, that cherry on top with how good he is against the run and what he was brought in to do. Again, circled again, head up, slightly outside shade of that right tackle. Watch him just bang and then dip and get through. I'll play from this angle in regular speed one more time, or I guess for the first time in regular speed completely. Just bang, dips, rips, through. Real quality, real quality. Another play that we're going to go through here from Mr. DaQuan Jones is, here we go, through the snow. Okay, this one, I'm not even going to show it from the sideline angle or the one, that's the camera angle I want. Here is DaQuan Jones. I tweeted this out yesterday, put that he made the center look like he was a baby giraffe. Someone whose Twitter handle I forget said, gave me the gif of Bambi trying to move well on ice. So it could be a baby deer on ice. It could be a baby giraffe, however you want to look at it. But here's DaQuan Jones, and just, I'll circle him here. I'll play this regular speed. Just watch what he does to the center. Poor center. I go again. Play it in real time. Because real time, you get a true sense of just how quick it happens. Now we're going to go in slow-mo. So I'm going to play it regular speed. There goes the motion. Here goes DaQuan. Just watch what he does. So the center's going to try and anchor. DaQuan's under him. He's got the good hand placement right in the chest. He's got leverage. He's pushing. He's driving through. This is kind of textbook. He's underneath him. Center does not have his hands. Liam Eichenberg, he's, his right hand is off here. He's got nothing. He's got no grip. He's in poor positioning. He's not going to be able to anchor, but he tries to anchor. And nope. Tries again. Nope. And just, you can just see him melt. And melt. Sorry, I feel so bad doing this, but this is just brutal. And then this helps heat up Tua. This is on third down. All Miami needed was 2 yards. This helps heat up Tua. He tries to get it to Mostert. Throws it a little high, and behind him, incompletion, Bills get off the field. So not only is it a good play from DaQuan Jones, but it also contributes to getting the Dolphins off the field, getting a stop on third down in a very manageable. This is 3rd and 2. And with how Miami's offense has been rolling, this is more than accomplishable for their offense. And DaQuan just ruins any chance of it by making Eichenberg look like a newborn baby giraffe trying to walk for the first time. Brutal. Oof. Just, I feel bad, but it's also, man, his power, the burst, the leverage that he's able to play with, like how good he plays technically, but also from a strength perspective and overall what he does. Here's another one, Mr. DaQuan Jones right there. Circle him. Again, this ends up being a positive gain for Miami. Nice tackle by Taylor Rapp on the outside, but I don't want to just pull the plays that, it only resulted in a negative. Like sometimes it's still just impressive to see what they do. Again, wide alignment, head up on the right tackle. Here he is again, DaQuan Jones. We'll go in slow motion. Watch. He goes from head up on the right tackle to the far side A gap, similar to what we saw in that first play. Slants over, hits Eichenberg with that swim move. But it's more so the speed with which it happens. Again, I know Tua gets it out to his outlet. I know this is a positive gain for Miami. It's 2nd and 10. They gain 7. But I'm just going to keep playing it from this spot. Just watch the quickness from DaQuan Jones over and over again. How fast he goes. He crosses multiple gaps and gets into the backfield in the blink of an eye. This is not a pass rush specialist interior defensive player. This is not a 285 or 90-pound defensive tackle. This is a 300-plus pound defensive interior player who is used to plugging the run, 2-gapping or gapping and a half before he came to Buffalo and became more of a 1-gap penetrating type of dude. The fact that you're getting this out of your run-stopping defensive tackle and he's still playing well against the run has been a huge boon to this defense. Again, having an absolute monster of a year, being 7th in pass rush productivity, which is just nuts for him considering he's not a pass rush specialist as an interior player. Extremely impressive. He's somebody who I know everybody keeps saying it, a lot, like got to get, extension. He really does need to be extended. I know age is a factor, but what he's brought to this defense, it's been a lot. It's been significant. Someone else who's brought a significant piece to this defense this year has been Mr. Ed Oliver, DaQuan's running mate on the interior. Here he is right here. You can't really make him out, but he's right next to Shaq Lawson there on the edge. So here's Mr. Ed Oliver right here. Also, I want to highlight Taron Johnson on this play for boxing in this run and helping Ed Oliver to make this play, but playing in real time. There goes the motion. Watch Ed just scrape down the line. Boom. Good play. Again, I want to highlight Taron. Watch the play by Taron Johnson. This is what helps make it. We go. We get that burst motion. It ends up being a handoff. Watch Taron come up. Again, plays the run like he's a 6'4", 240-pound linebacker. Comes up, boxes this run in. He comes up, he gets underneath, gets outside, dips underneath. He forces Mostert to have to take this alley. If he plays this wrong, Mostert gets to the outside, and then Ed Oliver and Terrell Bernard, these guys who are chasing these pursuit guys from the interior, they're not going to get Mostert. With his speed, it doesn't even matter the angle they're going to take. They're not going to make that play. I guess there's a chance that they might, but it's going to be a significantly harder play. So Taron forces this back inside to where his help is, trying to limit the explosive play. But Ed came down the line like a banshee and bang, makes the play on Mostert. Let's watch it from, not this angle. I hate this angle. We'll go from this one. There's Mr. Ed Oliver. We're going to go in slow-mo here. Watch how he makes contact with the guard, but watch how he keeps himself clean. He gets the hand extension. Look at the hand placement. Bang and bang. Can't really see it too great without zooming in, but he gets the hand placement there. It's right into, and then it's in front of his helmet. Like here, it's right into the chest. He's controlling his man. And then on top of it, he extends as he reads this play. So his eyes, let's go back a little bit. His eyes are in the backfield. As he's working his way down the line and has his good hand placement, his eyes are in the backfield on Mostert. So he's watching what's happening. Watches, boom, get the big extension again. Now he presses his man off him and then gets clean and works his way down the line. Hustles, bang. And even right before he makes the play, this is nice too, because Hunt tries to make contact with him again. Watch Ed again right here. One more quick little type of stiff arm shot, punch, some shock with your hands, some pop with your hands, just to get him off kilter and keep yourself free, to prevent him from getting into your kitchen, to prevent him from getting into your body and latching on. Just making the play, and then bang. I'll play it in fast motion a couple times just so you can get the speed of it. The violence in the hands, the shock, the pop in the hands, the hustle, the effort down the line. Really good play from Ed, who's been strong in every single game this year. Pass rush against the run, he and DaQuan have just been absolute studs on the inside for the Bills. It's part of the reason why this defense has been so successful. Look at every time, again, you see it better when it's not in slow-mo. Look at every time his hands make contact with Hunt. Watch the pop, watch the shock, like what you see in the hands and in the pop from Ed Oliver. Every time, bang, jolts him back again, and then gets him again. Like, watch the whiplash in the head and the neck every time. Like, there's real shock, there's real pop in those hands from Ed Oliver. Let it finish on the other angle here. Just every time, man. Boom. And again, this is the angle. See Taron Johnson? Let's let it run. Here comes Taron. Boom. Dips under, forces this. So Mostert has to cut into this alley. And because he cuts into that alley, it allows Ed Oliver, who's flowing down, to make that play. And he crushes Mostert. And another play we're going to look at for Mr. Ed Oliver. This one's a straight up win. I'm not going to go from the sideline angle. I'm going to go from this Ed zone angle. Here is Mr. Ed Oliver. Quick, decisive burst off the line. And watching him win on this one. We'll go in slow-mo first. So you see, bang, quick swim. Actually, no, it's the other angle. That's the better angle. This is the one. Here's Ed Oliver. We'll play it in real time first. Just watch the quickness. Boom. Backfield. Plant. Just. Oh, this is a 2nd and 4. Miami loses 2 yards on this play because of Ed. Just the quickness. The recognition. To recognize the run. The hand technique. The quickness. The agility. Avoids the block. Gets in. Bang. It happens in the blink of an eye. That type of interior disruption. JP and I talked about it last week when I had him on the show. Like, getting that interior pressure against Tua, but also having that interior presence against the run was going to be needed for this Bills team. DaQuan brought it. Ed Oliver brought it. Man, quick, decisive win for Ed Oliver. Just overall impressive with what he's doing right there. Last player I wanted to highlight here in stock up, Mr. Matt Milano, just an absolute monster. It's nice to see him finally getting recognition on the national broadcasts. Here he is on this one. Actually, the first piece I want to call out with this is note all the pre-snap communication. Micah Hyde, Matt Milano, Taron Johnson, Terrell Bernard, even Epinesa to start, but just watch all the pre-snap communication that is happening with this Bills defense. Just all the communication. Terrell Bernard looks like an air traffic controller. Just all the pre-snap communication, bang. And then what I want to do with this one, we're going to let the play run, but I want to keep playing it in real time at this specific spot so you can see just like the speed and the aggression with which Terrell Bernard comes forward and Matt Milano comes forward. This ends up being a forced fumble and a turnover. But just watch from this perspective how fast. It's just, I'm just going to keep hitting it from this spot. Bang. Boom. Like, Bernard and Milano each got shot out of a cannon right there in that very moment. That's the physicality, physical, aggressive, burst at the tackle point. Not out of control, purposeful, controlled violence, controlled burst, controlled aggression right on the ball carrier, and the ball comes out. I don't even think Milano is necessarily going for the strip. He's just making a hard, fast, physical football play, and it leads to a fumble. Boom. Let's watch it from this angle. And again, what's nice with this is, so here's Milano. Watch him start to flow. He does this so well, like flowing over the top, scraping over the top, like his ability to read. He sees what's going on here. Bernard fills the alley right here, which is nice. And then Milano shoots it backdoor. Like his ability to like shoot those gaps, get in quickly, penetrate, whether it's due to just athleticism and quickness or a pre-snap read or post-snap processing. He's so adept at this. Gets through. Boom. Again, not necessarily going for the strip, just makes a good physical play, gets his hand on the ball as he wraps up, ball comes out. Watch it from this angle. Again, see all the communication. Here's Matt Milano, who recognizes the motion, which is a tell. Alec Ingold going in that, orbit, any type of orbit motion, burst motion, fast motion from him. Balls usually going to that side. There goes Ingold. Ball on the side. Boom. Again, Milano. And we'll circle Bernard, too. Shout out Bernard, who's played well. We've highlighted his play on the show. Bernard triggers, sees the ball go to Mostert, comes downhill. This is also what part it makes it too, right? Like Milano makes this play on the ball and generates the fumble, but Bernard coming up and filling the alley here and filling the hole and doing it at the angle and the pace that he does is what causes Mostert to have to stop his feet and put his foot in the ground, which is what leads him to Matt Milano and which is what leads to the fumble. I also want to highlight on this play Mr. Alec Ingold for the Miami Dolphins. Good blocking fullback. Watch him go outside and meet Mr. Dane Jackson. Boom. Dane coming up and making a physical play. Like, that's what you got going on here. Like, everybody's playing fast and physical and purposeful. Does it mean they're going to make every play? No. Does it mean they're not going to get caught out of position? No. Does it mean they won't miss tackles from time to time? No. But just the physical aggression, the physical and the physical aggressiveness that they have, the mental aggressiveness they have. They're just playing free. They're flowing to the football. It's fast. It's aggressive. It's clean. Just look at everything happening simultaneously. Like, and I'll go in slow motion here. Dane Jackson pops Ingold. Bang. Bernard comes up. Mostert cuts. Milano crushes. Mostert. Ball comes out. Just like, look at everything happening all at once from multiple levels and players of the defense. Boom. That's good football. That's good defensive football. That's hard, clean, fast, physical, aggressive football in a multitude of areas. So shout out to Dane on that play. Shout out to Milano. Shout out to Terrell Bernard. Again, I know we're focusing on Milano here, but Bernard deserves recognition for that one, as does Mr. Dane Jackson, who played well coming in for Tre'Davious White. This next one, 4th and 6th. Shout out a little to Milano here, but really also want to shout out Sean McDermott on this one too, just with the pressure look that you've got. So you've got 3 on this side with Terrell Bernard coming up and lined up between Ed Oliver and Leonard Floyd. So you've got 3 showing on the left and then 2 showing on the right. Matt Milano doesn't count there. So it's really just Groot and then man inside here, Mr. DaQuan Jones. But on the snap, as you can see, Bernard drops out. So let's key what's going on here. So watch the center. Based on the 3, it's, again, this isn't crazy. These are just simple numbers. 3 showing versus 2 showing. So what are you going to do if you're the center? Let me slide to my right because I got to help out the 3 side. Eichenberg slides to his right. Nope. Terrell Bernard, he drops. Matt Milano, he rushes. This is similar to one of the plays we showed last week. And similar to a play that we showed against Washington with the idea of just creating overload and creating a numbers advantage by showing different numbers and alignments pre-snap. So Bernard drops out. Milano comes. What do you have now on this side? DaQuan goes inside, takes his man. Milano goes inside, takes his man. And there goes Greg Rousseau. Free off the edge. Watching in real time. Slide. Free runner. Sack. So I love it, the design and the call from Sean McDermott in this situation. What I love from Milano is the timing of it. He's so adept at timing snap counts and then pairing that with his burst and his aggressiveness to shoot gaps or get into offensive linemen. Just watch the timing. It just works out so well. And he's just there to take up the tackle. Or if the tackle doesn't slide down onto Milano, cool. He wants to stay out here on Groot. Cool. Milano just shoots this gap and then bears down on Tua, and you see if he can make a play there. But he does his job. Again, watch DaQuan slant on the snap. Milano takes that inside route because the thought is this tackle either has to come down on a Milano and you get a free runner with Groot, or the tackle stays out on Groot, and then again, Milano slices inside. Either way, at this point, what Sean McDermott has done is created a 3-on-2 for the Buffalo Bills, which is obviously an advantage. Free runner. Again, good schematic design, good timing from Matt Milano, but a really nice 5-man pressure. Again, Sean McDermott has been very successful with these 5-man pressures, and the players are executing well, but also just from a design standpoint, sometimes it's as simple as show 3 on one side and 2 on another, and then switch where you bring the 3 and drop somebody out. And then again, you have to shout out the coverage on the back end. We'll show it there. Because Tua loves to get this ball out quick. He wants to get the ball out quick, but it's not there. Hyde doesn't just come screaming up on the running back. Him sitting and kind of slow playing it allows, if Tua wanted to hit Waddle here, he doesn't feel comfortable. The back isn't out of his piece yet, and then Groot's bearing down on him. Groot's influencing the throwing angle with how the length that he has, his size, and his frame. Tua's just done from the beginning. So again, overall good design from Sean McDermott, and then good individual execution from Milano and the rest of the crew. Last play here that I want to show from Mr. Matt Milano. Early on in this game, man, just a really, 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 really strong play from him. I want to go to the end zone angle. There we go. Also, I just love this alignment. Like, again, here's Taron Johnson, tiny nickel corner, just playing in the box. Playing in the box like he's 6'3", 250, 240 pounds, whatever. But we're not highlighting Taron on this one, although we should highlight Taron every play because he's one of the key components to this Bills defense. Here's Matt Milano. I'll let this run in real time. Oh, just look at the pace at which he scoops the leg. Somebody threw the Cobra Kai reference on Twitter when I posted this, so that was good too. Oh, also, again, another tell for the Miami offense. Watch Mr. Alec Ingold. Usually where he goes, the ball goes, but especially when he motions or he shifts. What's happening? Oh, there you go. Again, team defense. Love the individual play by Matt Milano, but also let's highlight our boy, Taron Johnson. What does Taron Johnson do on this play? Let's watch. As the run flows outside, what does he do? Similar to what he did on that Ed Oliver play that I put earlier. Plays it outside. Now, it's not the most aggressive play here. It's not some amazing stalwart play. He doesn't submarine Ingold and blow this up. He just plays responsible. Forces A-Chain into this alley. And it could end up being a gain of 6 or 7 or more. But the point is, you force this play back to your help, and you hope somebody scraping or flowing from the inside can make a play, or you funnel this to Taylor Rapp coming from depth. Taron Johnson does his job, forces this run back inside. Sometimes run defense isn't just about, well, how come you didn't make the tackle? It's doing your job to allow others to make the tackle. Taron Johnson does his job here, and then just watch Milano. Again, the force in which he scrapes over. A-Train tries to juke him. He goes low, and just the force. It's the force. Again, similar to when he forced that fumble earlier. Like, it's the force on this play from Matt Milano. Just everything he does is 100 miles an hour, 100% of the time. It's fast, it's physical, it's clean. It's just good football. Like the way he shoots gaps, the way he plays. We'll go from the sideline angle because you get an appreciation for it too. Again, they shift. It brings Taron into the box. Here's Matt Milano. Again, I'll show you the play from the beginning. They shift. It brings Taron in. And here's Milano. Again, right meow. There's Matt Milano. Actually, I'll just leave him circled so we can play this play again. We're just playing in real time. Just watch him. Flow over the top. Bernard cuts inside. Smythe takes him. This angle you lose, like the actual scoop or like the pick of the leg or pick of the ankle, but it gives you the perspective of just like the ground he covers and what he does. Also, too, like watch. You see that move as Smythe comes through? Watch him right here. He bows out a little bit to make sure he doesn't get caught in anything so he can get over the top, and then he like almost not 90-degree turns it, but gets himself right in the hole, lowers, scoops that leg. I'm going to go from this end zone angle because it's my favorite piece. Just a really great play from Matt Milano. Fast, physical, clean, aggressive football. Everything Sean McDermott is about. And it's just highlighted in these players individually with what you saw from DaQuan Jones, what you saw from Ed Oliver, what you're seeing from Matt Milano. In addition, again, Dane Jackson, Taron Johnson, Terrell Bernard, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Greg Rousseau. Like, I kind of just want to name everybody. But it's just fast, aggressive football. And I say aggressive, and I don't want aggressive to be confused with like out of control. Like, it is controlled aggression. It's just fast flowing football. They are processing accurately and efficiently. And I think that's part of it too, right? Playing fast isn't, and I've said it on the show all the time, like playing fast isn't just, well, you're fast. It's, well, I run a 4.340, so I'm fast. Or I have, a great short shuttle or a great 3-cone. I'm super athletic, or I'm bendy, or I'm this. Playing fast is also tied to how you process. Playing fast is tied to your ability to recognize or identify something pre-snap, right? You don't have to be the fastest guy if you know where the ball is going, you know the angles to take, or if you're so great at processing post-snap, boom, you can diagnose and key in right away, and then you can go make a play. The ability of this Bills defense to play fast physically and mentally, again, I think you have to tie that back to Sean McDermott. What he's done or what he's doing from a preparation standpoint, and then the schematic piece to tie it all together with what he's doing with this group overall. He's just got dudes hitting on all cylinders, and Milano's an example of it, although he had a very good year last year, obviously being an all-pro under Leslie Frazier, but the defense looks different. It feels different. Awesome reference, RJ, saying some may call it ruthless aggression. I thought of putting that in there, but I didn't know if enough people would get the reference, so I'm very glad that you did. Well done, RJ. Well, I forgive you for all the Dorsey slander because of this reference. I appreciate you, RJ, very much. Well done. Yeah, it's clean too. Again, like, it's just fast, clean, good, aggressive football. It's physical, but it's not dirty. There's nothing wrong about it. It's just good, clean, fast, physical football. I'm going to continue to say that and echo those words over and over again. And I think it stems from Sean McDermott, what he's doing schematically, how he's got them prepared week in and week out, their ability to execute post-snap. Just what they're doing is tremendous. And it's, reflected in several of the plays we showed here and in several of the players throughout the year. On the other side of the ball, myself and Eric are going to be breaking down the Bills offense tomorrow night on the film room, so I don't want to hit too many pieces right now in disguise coverage, but Ken Dorsey deserves another pat on the back. I just want to talk about two plays. I posted them both on Twitter. The first touchdown to Gabe Davis, everybody's been kind of knocking the usage of Deontay Hardy. What does Ken Dorsey do? Sends him in orbit motion. They fake the swing pass to Deontay Hardy, a play that they've run several times this year already. Gabe Davis slow plays it like he's blocking. Allen pump fakes it hard to the swing. Gabe Davis takes off. Touchdown to Gabe Davis. Later, the touchdown to Stephon Diggs, the one in the low red zone on Kader Kohu, who had a rough day. Bills, they love that run action and that glance route off the run action, or that RPO with the glance route to Stephon Diggs. Diggs fakes it, but ends up popping back out. Kohu is completely confused. He thinks it's going to be that inside glance piece. It's not. Ken Dorsey continuing to, we've praised him on this show and in the film room for his ability to tie concepts together and what he's doing conceptually with route concepts and formations, using it to mitigate pass rushers, mitigate defense's strengths, but also using it to help Josh Allen succeed, give him easy buttons, give him easy, quick read options to allow him to get into a rhythm and take advantage of what defenses are giving him. But also what he's done in the run game as well, just varying the concepts and modes of attack based on opponents' weaknesses week in and week out. But what I really liked in this game was, again, just tying in those pieces of, hey, this is usually what we do out of this. Teams know that. Let's flip it on its head. And he said something last year, which was one of my favorite quotes from him, and I'm paraphrasing it, but he said something along the lines of, you need to get your players to understand why you're calling a play. And sometimes calling a play isn't just to have it work in this moment right now. It's to get them to understand the bigger picture. Sometimes you call a play right now to set something up later in the game. It could be the next drive. It could be the next quarter. It could be the end of the game. It could be the following week. But everything connects, and getting your players to understand the reason why you're calling a play in the moment. And we started to see, again, more of those pieces from Ken Dorsey, him using their own keys and their own tendencies against, or using it to flip what Miami would expect in those scenarios. And they got 2 touchdowns out of it. So major shout out to Ken Dorsey. And within that, Stephon Diggs continues to ball out and has just been an absolute monster and fiend. Tying in that with Josh Allen as well. Continuing to play strong after week 1. We could be here forever talking about stock up, but the big highlights for me, Sean McDermott, what he did, DaQuan Jones, Ed Oliver, Matt Milano, and then Ken Dorsey as well. Just mainly the defense took it home for me this week because of how good Miami's offense is and how well the Bills defense played. But I wanted to highlight some offensive pieces as well because they deserve their shine too. A lot of people deserve their shine. Again, the Bills put out an absolutely tremendous performance in this game. So major shout to the entire Bills team, which sounds ridiculous, but really was, I should say, a very, very, very good, very strong performance from them. With that being said, I'm going to throw up this banner that says toodles, folks, because it is 11 o'clock. I did not realize we got to get out of here. This has been a very tremendous episode. Before anybody leaves, if you haven't already, please, and thank you, drop a like on this video. I know it's corny to ask for them. I know it's corny to say that I know it's corny. I say this every week. I do the spiel every week. I'm sorry that it's a spiel or if you feel like I'm a shill or selling out. But like sincerely go a very long way towards helping myself and the entire team to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. So if you enjoy this content, if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed me, if you enjoyed JP, if you just like football, if you just like the Bills, if you just like Cover One, if you like fun Halloween tree design and fun Halloween stuff back there or pumpkins. Oh, I got it right. I never get right with what is behind me in terms of pointing for anything. Or if you're just happy because the weather's nice in Buffalo or I don't know, you found $5 on the ground today, whatever have you, drop a like on this video. It goes a long way. Myself and the entire team greatly appreciate it. And it helps a lot more than you know. Please drop a like on this video, whether you're watching live now or watching later. If you are listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, please, and thank you. Rate and review and subscribe. Amy, I see you about to take off. Thank you very much for recognizing the tree, Amy. I appreciate you. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other audio platform, please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage. Subscribe to Disguise Coverage here on YouTube as well. And the Cover One channel, we have you covered every single night, literally, I think 6 days a week, 7 now with Bills games happening on Sundays. We have you covered every single day of the week when it comes to Bills content. Just kind of pick your poison, whatever fits your fancy. I appreciate all the kind words coming through from myself. I see all of them. I recognize all of them. I don't like to pull up nice comments for myself because I think it's too corny, but I do see them. They sincerely mean a lot. Thank you so much. To everybody for the kind words. That's awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Save a Whale, Ride a Running Back for the super chat earlier. Thank you very much to Dave Arena for the super chat earlier. Thank you very much to all you in the live chat for your kind words towards JP and appreciation of JP. I legitimately think he's one of the best follows on Twitter. He can be found at Acosta32 or Acosta32, ACOSTA32 _JP. Give him a follow on Twitter. Check out his articles on SB Nation. He puts Establish the Fun out, I think, every Thursday or Friday. It's a very good read. Give him a follow. Check out his work. He's awesome. Many thanks to him again for joining me for the second week in a row to break down Bills Jags. And thank you to you folks for being gracious and kind and appreciating him. Thank you very much for everybody who joined me and JP live for this episode. It's awesome to see the back and forth, the live engagement, questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, all of that kind of stuff. Thank you to everybody in the chat who defended me against that guy who apparently hates me, and for sending him on his way when he left. I appreciate you folks more than you will possibly know. And again, I say that every week and I sincerely mean it. Thank you very much to everybody who watched this live. If you're watching later, thank you. If you're listening to this show on, podcasting apps and platforms, thank you for your listen, your view, your download, however you want to put it. I greatly appreciate any and every all forms of support from you folks. Tell your family and friends and loved ones about how awesome this show is. Get them put onto it. If you thought this show was terrible, bringing it back full circle, tell your enemies and try and ruin their day with this show. Fab, I'm sorry that your pizza is stuck in the print queue. Oh, I like this comment from Beta Jim. Thank you. I appreciate the kind at the beginning. He says, don't worry, we'll replace that guy with more of our enemies. Man, I appreciate you folks. Godspeed. Enjoy your week. Make sure you set your alarms early for Sunday morning. Bills play at 9:30. NFL Network is broadcasting the game, not just on ESPN Plus and Disney Plus like it was this past weekend. So, London affair, Bills, Jags. Enjoy the rest of your week. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. I will see you next Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, for another episode of Disguise Coverage. Join myself and Eric live tomorrow night, Wednesday, October 4th. Falling apart here at the end. 7 p.m. Eastern for an episode of the Cover One Film Room. We'll be breaking down a lot of awesome things from Bills Dolphins. If you're watching this episode of Disguise Coverage later in the week, go check out the Cover One Film Room episode with myself and Eric Turner. It's going to be absolutely tremendous. I'm going to go pass out and go to sleep. Enjoy the rest of your night, folks. Godspeed. And as always,